Traditional stages in developing a system: testing, evaluating, and maintaining. So here we are now at the last stage in the traditional approach to system development, and that is the stage of testing, evaluating, and maintaining. So let's now take a look at to what this stage involves. So in this final section of system development, the project team needs to ensure that the new information system is working correctly and satisfies the original requirements that served as the foundation for the new system's purpose. So we're reflecting back upon what we did in the earlier stages in system development, the understanding, the problem stage, and the planning stage, where we looked at what were the requirements that were in place for developing this new system. What did it need to do? Okay, so now we're kind of reflecting back on that and we're seeing, does this new system we've created now and implemented, does it satisfy those requirements? Okay, and the important things are this stage and what's achieved through this stage are those three stages, spoilers alert, okay, of testing, evaluating, and maintaining. Okay, they are the three steps involved here, and we're going to go into a bit of detail of what goes in this video. So essentially, by the end of this stage, development is complete. Okay, we've finished developing this system. The project team can now leave the project. They've done it. With the system being fully implemented into the organization it was built for, with participants satisfied that the system meets their requirements. Okay, and we want to make sure that they are satisfied before we leave the project and the system in their hands. So let's go into these three stages now of testing, evaluating, and maintaining. So firstly, we will take a look at testing. Okay, and testing involves checking that a system is functioning correctly and delivering the expected information as per the requirements of the participants. Okay, it's coming out of the system. The information coming out of the system is what they are expecting to see. Okay, when a system is tested, a variety of different types of data are entered into the system, using both expected and unexpected data types in order to see how a system responds. So let's take a bit of a look into that, what we mean by expected and unexpected data types. So here is a simple equation, okay? And let's say we're testing out this mathematical function. Okay, a is our variable. So if I said a was 1, well, 1 plus 2 equals 3. If a was 2, 2 plus 2 equals 4. And I'd want to see those values coming out of the system to make sure it's correctly. They are expected outcomes. But let's say a was actually a. I accidentally pressed A on my keyboard and then it went A plus 2. What's going to be the outcome there? Now, for you programs out there, you know that if there is no kind of safeguard in your system, okay, A plus 2 is going to cause your program to crash. And we don't want that happening with our system. That's why we've got to test things like that. And we also want to test that if we did put in some sort of subprogram to protect our system against crashing, or some sort of validation technique which said you cannot enter a letter, okay, we do not want our system crashing, so we've got to have things in place for that. So A would be tested, and other letters, symbols like percentage might be tested, or characters from other languages might be tested, and see what happens if that goes in this equation. So we're testing all these expected and unexpected outcomes to make sure that we get the information we want out of the system when we put in an expected outcome, and also if a user potentially is going to enter in an error, there are safeguards in place to protect it. So, how do we then test the data? Well, a system is tested using test data, okay, which is entered into a system in order to experiment with different types of data that could possibly enter into the new information system in order to see its outputs. And we've got three classifications of test data in this course: that of simulated data, live data, and volume data. Simulated data is entered by the project team, and that's them doing pretty much what I just said in that example there, putting in the expected and unexpected outcomes and just seeing what happens. Live data is real world data that would be entered by users and participants. So the system could actually be tested live with people being able to access the system. Okay. And we're observing how the system responds to the live data. Okay. That is unpredictable because obviously the users and participants are entering the data. The project team can't control what's being entered, but obviously it's the type of data the system's been built for. So hopefully it should be able to handle that data when it is live. Okay. And that might only be go live for a temporary period so that the project team can observe and then make adjustments where required. And then the final type of test data is volume data. That's when we hammer the system with lots of data at once. So this might be that we just put a lot of data into the system and see what it does, okay, from a single user. But it could also mean that we put our system, if it is a network system, we put it live, okay, and allow multiple users to access the system at once. And you might have seen this with beta testing of gaming. And when there are lots of users accessing the system at once, does the system slow down? Does it crash? So what is the volume? How much data can the system handle either from a single user or multiple users at once? All right, we'll leave testing now and we'll move over to the second stage here, which is evaluation. Okay, so evaluating involves assessing how the new system meets the needs of the participants using the system. This involves assessing the new system in relation to whether the initial requirements have been met. So we'd probably have a list of what our initial requirements were, okay, and then we'd be ticking off whether or not we think we've satisfied them. This process may involve referring back to the requirements report that was conducted during the planning stage of the system development lifecycle, the time that we actually found out what the requirements were going to be. Okay, and we wrote them down for a specific reason. That was our whole purpose of the planning stage, that we're going to develop a system that satisfied those requirements. This is in order to ensure that all identified requirements have been satisfied by the new system. So a big part of evaluating would be using an actual evaluation sheet. This would be done by users and participants and as well as members of the project team in order to ensure that the system is doing what it was achieved to do, achieving its purpose. So an evaluation sheet might have something like, please fill in the following in relation to the new system. Okay, and it might have a series of questions for the users, participants, and project team to answer. So, is the system easy to use? Checking their user experience. Is information provided by the system useful? Assessing the quality of information of the system. Does the system satisfy your requirements? So, meeting the needs of the actual users and participants. And does the operations manual assist in using the system? That operations manual that was developed in the last stage, that's going to be used by the actual participants and users going forward once the project team leaves. So, we need to make sure that's working well as well. So they are all close-ended questions, and essentially what would be happening is people who fill in the survey would be ticking it if they believe, yes, everything's good. Okay, that's what we want to see. Everything is satisfying. They're ticking everything off. Or they could be putting crosses there and saying, no, you know what? I find this system very hard to use. Now, I wouldn't know that, okay, because all I've got is a variety of tick boxes here. And that's why it's important to also have an open-ended question in there. So please make a comment on the system, okay? And the participant, right, this system is amazing. Okay, or they could write, I completely hate this system, please bring back the old system. We hope they're not going to write that there. Okay, but obviously this gives feedback to the project team. Okay, and hopefully if they do see everything's positive as per this evaluation here, that means they can move on and the system is looking pretty good and they can finalize it now. The final stage, obviously, of this entire whole project, of developing a new system is maintaining. And maintaining relates to the actual process of ensuring that the system stays both efficient and functioning during its lifetime. It is a long term strategy which is in place to ensure that the system stays working in the long term. Okay, once the project team leaves, how will we ensure that the system stays working? Okay, so here is the testing, evaluating, maintaining stage. Once we have completed this stage, the maintenance period begins. Okay, the system needs to be maintained and to be kept working after we've finished development. Now, some things that aid with this include the operations manual, okay, that being the go-to place for users and participants if they're unsure about anything. They refer to the manual, which can assist them with diagrams, procedures, practices that will help them guide them through doing things on the new system. We would have a maintenance strategy relating to hardware. Hardware might need to be attended to by a technician either monthly or yearly to ensure that those hardware components stay working. And then also updating of software. Think of the apps on your phone. Okay, every now and then they need an update. That could be due to bugs being found within the system, or it could also be due to other software, such as operating system software or other apps that are actually on the system, being updated by their manufacturers, and thus your system needs to stay compatible, and thus it needs a software update itself. So I hope this has given you a good introduction into the testing, evaluating, and maintaining stage of system development, and really finalizing what's required of the system. Okay, testing, ensuring that the system is working correctly, and you're looking at the fact that it does give you the expected data that you want out of the system, and that errors won't crash the system. Evaluating, checking the users and participants are satisfied with the system, okay, and seeing that no further changes need to be made, and obviously getting that confirmation that they are happy that the requirements have been satisfied. And then finally, maintaining, ensuring that the system stays working in the long term through having practices and setting up things such as an operations manual for guidance, maintenance practices for hardware, and updating of software.